If there was a Mount Rushmore for the all-time struggles we as men face with women, being banished to the dreaded just be friend zone would be on it. No man gets a free pass, even if they've won the quote-unquote genetic lottery. But when you look for answers online on how to solve the problem, all you find is preposterously cringeworthy advice from women like, be clearer about your feelings towards her, or worse, pickup artists parroting the weird strategy to paw her up more on the first date so she'll get used to being touched by you. We instinctively know none of that works, right, gentlemen? Well, it's time for honest answers. And what's more, a complete big picture into what actually makes women put us into the JBF zone to begin with, how to get out of it if we're already there, and of course, how to avoid it forever to begin with from now on. It would also help to know how for sure to know if you've been JBF'd or not, right? It would also be great to get to know the common derivatives of the JBF zone so we can stay out of those too. And yes, we as men need to know all the subtle ways we can be our own worst enemy here. And of course, how to stop it. Well, in this month's masterclass for men, you'll get all the answers you need to transform your knowledge, mindset, and your habits so that all things JBF will be in the rearview mirror. Unless, of course, you find yourself spoiled for choice with women enough that the tables are turned and you're the one giving JBF talks to women from now on. And yes, I'll even show you how to do that. If you're listening to this episode within the first several days of its release, it's all going down this coming Wednesday, March 27th, 2024 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Grab your ticket for this game-changing masterclass, the Just Be Friend Zone, Get Out and Stay Out, at mountaintoppodcast.com/masterclass. And now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the milestone number 400th episode of The Mountaintop, featuring my good friend, Zan Perion.
Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
How's it going, gentlemen? Welcome to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. This happens to be the milestone number 400th episode of the show. And right here at the outset, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for your longtime support of this show. If you're just now discovering the show and enjoying it, welcome to you as well. But we've been continuously podcasting with X and Y on the fly, my wife Emily and I, since 2006. This show has been in continuous production, previously titled The Chick Whisperer, from 2007 until today. So, wow. It's been a great run. We're going to keep up the good work around here. Hopefully you guys still think it's good work. We're having a lot of fun doing it. The guests have been fantastic. And we keep cranking out new and exciting topics for you. And gentlemen, today is no exception. With me today is my longtime friend. Man, we go back about 15 years, back to the old pickup artist days. He's even talked about in Neil Strauss's book, The Game, of all places. It's been so long. That's Zan Perion, of course, and I want to welcome to the show. Welcome back, Zan.
Hello. Glad to be back. Number 400.
Yeah, man, it's good to have you back. This is the third or fourth time you've been on, and we have ourselves a topic today that, man, I see covered very, very little. I mean, if you Google the term, you'll find a smattering of blog posts here and there, and that's the idea of alpha widows. And to be honest, Zan, this has been on my radar screen for like a year, and I've, brought the topic forward with several fellow dating coaches who I was pretty confident could cover it, and none of them were willing to. None of them wanted to. None of them could even feel confident talking about it. Yet, where I first saw the topic, if my memory serves me correctly, and I think it does, was on your Facebook group. One of your guys in the group actually brought up the concept of alpha widows. And so why didn't I have you on at the time? Well, you'd just been on the show like 3 weeks prior. So, there was a proximity issue there. But yeah, here it is. It's been kind of languishing on my radar screen here for a full year. So I just figured I'd get Zan the man on to discuss the topic that, well, for all intents and purposes, seemed to have originated on your Facebook group. So let's cover it.
Well, yeah, give me a definition of the term so we're exact on what we're talking about here.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Alpha widow.
Oh, yeah, okay. So let's compare notes here. Let's see if my definition's the same as yours.
Okay.
The way I understand it from the way that it was presented was you were such an amazing boyfriend, or I guess even husband, to a particular woman that she spoiled for life. No other guy is going to match up to you. She's always going to compare future men to you. You were just so amazing. And then you broke up with her that, well, from a romantic standpoint, she's just not ever going to get over you. I guess in many ways, it's very similar to the concept of, quote unquote, the one who got away. You know, that's kind of the way men tend to put it. There's this one person who we dated and we lost them, and it just seems like we're never going to get someone who, you know, matches up to them. Now, there's that word again, right? Alpha. And usually when people start talking about alpha and beta, in my experience, Zan, it seems like the people who aren't alpha are the ones who use that term the most. But there it is. And of course, widow is a subjective term here. I mean, I suppose maybe the poor bastard could have passed away, right? But typically the term widow is subjective here. You've just left this woman behind and alone, and poor her, she's not going to find a guy as cool as you. That's how I've heard it defined. You can add your inflection and your twist on that as you will.
Okay, yeah. I mean that's a big topic for guys. If men head down this road of trying to understand their masculine role and becoming this upright, standing guy again on earth, and loving the fact that he's male and he's got a sexual drive and all this kind of stuff, and they become the type of man that women desire. And when he enters into a woman's life, and then it's fantastic. She's never seen it before, and she craves it and she loves it. And then for whatever reason, as you said, he moves on he leaves, and she despairs of ever finding that again, and quote unquote is spoiled for other men. I have guys ask me that all the time. They say, you know, listen, I'm learning this about myself, and I'm becoming this great lover and this great energy, and I put myself full force into the experience with the woman I'm seeing, even though I know it's not going to last, and I'm not making any misrepresentations, but I feel like she feels really really heartbroken because she really wanted something strong, and she was wishing that it would materialize into something long term. So, I mean, there's two types of guys, I guess you could say, if I'm generalizing, and that's the old archetype of the man who basically comes in, breaks her heart, and leaves. And she's hopeful, and she has such a great experience with him, but he's just there to manipulate, have his fun, you know, a thief in the night sort of thing, and then he sneaks out the bedroom window.
Kind of a player.
And the player, and you know, and society, and of course, says that's a cad, that's not a good energy, it's not a good guy, and we would agree with that. But imagine this: what is the concept of a man who comes into a woman's life who is not going to stay, because that is his spirit, is that he's wandering and living in the wind, and he knows this, and he's honest with her from the day he meets her. My little sweetie, I'm not the one for you, and I adore you, and I want to see you while I'm here, while I can. And he leaves, as he said, but he leaves her better than she was when she met him, and vice versa. He's better and she's better. And there's no word in the English language for that. You got player, you got, you know, Don Juan, you got all these things that have a slightly negative connotation to them.
How about free bird, like Skinner?
Free bird, yeah.
You were kind of describing the guy in that song, I think.
I asked ChatGPT, what is the word in the English language that represents the spirit of a man who comes into a woman's life, who adores her, who celebrates her, who makes her feel really seen and pays full attention to her, but he has to go because he's caught up in the wind or his adventure or his art or whatever, and he's not the guy. He's not the guy, and he's honest about it. What do you call that? And I said, you know, and I said this to ChatGPT, and I said that the words that we use out there, like the ladies' man or the Don Juan or the Casanova, it all has has a connotation of manipulation and leaving her high and dry and leaving. So what is the word in English language, ChatGPT, that represents that man who brings a better spirit into the world because of the way he is with her? And ChatGPT said there is no word in the English language. And I said, okay, can you give me 10? Make up 10 words for me. And it came up with 10 words like loverant. I have them all written down. It's funny. And I said, well, what about the concept of the amorati? And a man who's an amorati, which is my fake Latin that I've used for all these years. And ChatGPT said, that's a great name. It means a lot, and it sounds right. And it's a good name for a man who brings a good experience into a woman's life.
Yeah, your brand has been Ars Amorata for years.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and the guys who, like, I've always thought that anybody from like Casanova he was not one of these manipulators. Casanova really cared, and he couldn't leave a woman to go to the next city on his adventures unless he really felt that she was okay, and he'd find her a suitable potential husband before he could leave in good conscience, because he really cared. And so in my mind, Casanova, unbeknownst to him, was an amorati. He was one of those guys that brings that good energy into the world.
Yeah, all of those guys you mentioned, your Don Juans, your Casanovas of the world, the word seducer is usually applied to those guys. And
right.
Seduction has gotten a bad rap over the
Correct.
years. Kind of like it's manipulative and this evil thing where you're kind of reeling in the biscuit and trying to get women into the sack. But what that overlooks, and I think indeed it's a measure of disrespect towards women, is that women are horny and they love to be seduced.
I know.
So if we're all in on this and we have enthusiastic consent and all those cool buzzwords, well, they're uncool buzzwords that kind of throw cold water on anything sexual and hot. But I mean, I guess it's necessary anyway, right? But when you have two people who want to be there and are enjoying this fun adult playtime that is seduction and eventually sexual behavior itself, it's a very good thing. It's a very beautiful thing. It's a very powerful thing. It's just been, stigmatized over the years.
Yes.
But if you're a guy who comes along and you must be traveling on now, like the Skinner guys, you know what's really funny? I think when you think of this guy, you're picturing this suave, pretty boy, right?
Sure.
And man, I just threw a whole wrench in the machine when I mentioned Leonard Skinner, didn't I? Because there's this country guy, with a do-rag riding a Harley,
There you go.
But he could be this guy just as much as any other persona of man, as long as he's doing all the right things, which is what I think we're starting to cover here, which is how do we end up with this little trail of alpha widows? Because I think if you're the guy you're talking about, you come spend time with women and then you move on, it's not going to be a fluke that this woman says to herself, my goodness, I'm never going to find another guy like you. Another pop culture reference I just thought of, this goes way back, is Karen Carpenter's song Superstar. And of course, Karen Carpenter had a voice like an angel, and Superstar is arguably her most melodic song she's ever sang.
Okay, yeah.
And the crazy part about that song is she's bemoaning the fact that she's in love with this rock star who will never be able to be tied down by her and probably won't even ever come around her town again.
Correct.
So she's singing like from the position of a groupie, which is odd for Karen Carpenter, right? And probably a little outside of her persona, even when she was, at the height of her career. But yeah, this is a very real thing. And I think a lot of guys listening, they're thinking to themselves, man, this seems really far away. I can't even get a woman to go out with me. I can't get her to even like me enough to have a second date. And you bastards are up there talking about, leaving women in a pile of emotion and, reaching out going, no, don't leave me. I love you. And yet it's very real. And I suppose the tone I want to set for this particular podcast episode, Zan, is this is something to aspire to having the ability to do. But I mean, at the same time, it's not like we want to leave women in a pile like this. How is this happening? What do certain men do that creates an alpha widow in the wake? And I mean, maybe how can we mitigate that without changing who we are? I mean, it's a two-part question, right?
Well, if you're excellent and women recognize that, you're going to have women that just really, pin their hopes and dreams on you, no matter what you say. And the sincere, honest thing is to say it straight up. I'm not the guy. I'm not going to be that guy, but I adore you. And my time with you is magnificent. And so I've had guys say to me, a lot of guys say to me, what do I do in this situation? They say, I don't go down that road with her because I don't want to break her heart. And as you said earlier, women are grown up. Women can make their own decisions in life. You being yourself, being truly, fully authentic and putting yourself into the world with full force, and women fall for you. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to be authentic and be real. I think it's a selfish thing for men to say, well, I don't want her to get hurt, and so I'm just not going to I'm not going to go down that path. Men don't want to go down that path because they don't want to, quote unquote, break her heart. And that's a selfish thing to say and to consider, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's kind of manipulative unto itself.
It's manipulation.
Yeah. See, you mentioned there were two kinds of guys. You have your players who go around basically lying to women to get them into bed. I mean, we know those guys are full of crap, and you don't want to be that guy because that guy's unethical and very selfish. But now you're kind of turning the tables on simply being this excellent guy, knowing you're going to break hearts, because it would be unethical to withhold that experience from a woman and let her make her own decisions and emote the way she's going to emote towards it, which I think is a very interesting take.
Not only that, but I'll tell you something that most men don't know. Women are very practical compared to men. Men are the romantic ones. Men are the ones who can't emotionally get over something in the past, where women can practically compartmentalize that part. So I'll tell you what happened to me many times in the past in my wandering days, my wandering years. I would meet a woman. We'd hit it off. It was fantastic, but I'm leaving town, or I'm in there for a month or 2 months or 3 months or something like that. And she would really, really, really desire to have a relationship with me. And I'm magnificent to her and fantastically, paying attention to her and spending time with her. And it's ideal and it's beautiful. But I'm telling her from the beginning, I'm not the guy. I'm leaving my little sweetie. And I want you to find a good guy because it's not me.
But this bird, you cannot change.
Yeah. And then what happened, what would happen is after a couple of weeks of seeing her, she would come to me with tears in her eyes, crying and say, listen, you know what? I can't do this. Like, I really need something more. I'm getting older. I want to get married. I really can't do this with you. It's too hard for me to do this. And you're leaving and I can't continue to see you. I have to stop seeing you. And there's me with tears in my eyes too, holding her hand, saying, I understand completely. I'm going to miss you terribly, but I completely get it. I understand. And I honor that. And I let you go with grace. Okay. This is what happens. They go away tearful and crying, saying, I can't continue to see you anymore. I want something long term. I want to get married, have children, whatever. A week or so later, you get a phone call. Hey, what are you doing? I'm just hanging around. Was wondering if you want to get together. Yeah, come see me. Boom, it's back on 100%. The girl is completely excited and fun and funny and having a blast with you because she made the switch in her mind that this guy is not going to be the guy, but I've got nobody else right now. And while I'm looking for that guy, for Mr. Right, I'll spend as much time as I can with Zan.
With Mr. Right now.
I'll tell you, I've been in bed with women. There's one time I remember I was in bed with this. Same thing happened with this girl. I was in bed with her, and she's showing me a text on her phone from a guy at the gym that she's excited and wants likes. And I'm helping her text. I say, no, don't send that. She's in my bed naked. And I'm saying, no, don't send that. Send this instead. So women get it. And women, if you let them go with grace, you don't lie, you don't manipulate, you don't try and lead them on, and they cry and go away, they come back because a woman would rather have part of a winner than all of a loser.
I think that's very, very true.
And they come back running. I tell you, they come back. And now that those hopes and dreams that they were pinned and the crying and the deep emotion is gone. She's fun and funny and full of life and knowing that you're not going to be the guy. But she's come to terms with that in her mind, which a man cannot do.
Yeah, several things I want to comment on here because, boy, everything you just talked about is pure gold and it's all 100% true. And guys, if you're listening to this thinking there's just no way in hell, well, there is, okay? This is how it works when you are a chooser, not a chaser, and you've done the self-work to become an attractive man. Zan, you're not a particularly tall, handsome, rich, et cetera guy. Nope. Neither am I, okay? One thing that guys may not know is you and I are about the same height. Neither one of us are 6-footers. I mean.
Nope.
And what it is it's learned skill and it's a love for female human beings. First of all, and you and I were laughing about this even before we hit play. Once again, as we always do, you're the only guy I know of who loves women more than I do. I mean, you're all about women all the time. I'll go, cook up some Mexican food and coach my kids in their BMX racing and play golf or whatever. You're all about chicks all the time. It's just women.
That's
women,
it,
women.
man.
Yeah. And that's amazing to me. But most men don't even like the bitches. They just want to get laid. They're just horny. They just want something to stick their dick in. And that's as off-putting to a woman as gold diggers are to us. I mean, nobody wants to be used. So you're talking about this idea of women having the ability to process things pragmatically. And we, of course, as men, have this weird assumption that women are only about emotions. They're going to start throwing plates like in The Godfather if we break up with them, etc. My experience is very similar to yours. I mean, you and I are tracking perfectly with each other on this very notion. Every time I told a woman, I think, you and I need to stop seeing each other, but it's been terrific. I really enjoy you, but either, you're getting the feels and I'm just not going to be your guy long term, or I just put them in the just be friend zone, right? Because, I got too many women I'm dating and she isn't going to be one of them anymore. As long as I'm not insulting her, as long as I'm not being mean to her, I found over and over again, even during the first few times when I braced myself for the plates being thrown at me, right? Or whatever vitriol I was going to get in return, women often thanked me for being so honest and straightforward instead of just disappearing and ghosting them. They appreciated the closure.
Correct. A
couple of them said, do you have a brother or anything like that? But also, when you're talking about the idea of Mr. Right versus Mr. Right Now, which is the way I put it, of course, earlier, that happens too. And it's breathtaking as a man when you start seeing it happen. Women will come to you on a first date and go, listen, you're not going to touch me. You're not going to get to kiss me. Nothing till you put a ring on it. That's just the way I roll. And of course, there's this old adage that, you listen to what a woman says and don't pay any attention to it. You just watch what she does. And I think there's some truth to that. I think there's some truth to that for men and women, for everybody. It's human nature in a way. But you're absolutely right. I've seen the same thing happen whereby I start charming a woman. I'm doing my thing. She really, really likes me and she gets really, really horny. And one day the clothes start coming off and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Didn't you say this? And she'll just go, I'm going to Texanize this, of course, because I live in Texas. They'll go, shh, be quiet. They'll put their little finger on my lips, their little painted fingernail on my lips and go, just shut up. And then, in the afterglow of whatever happens next, you say, well, didn't you say, well, girls got to do what a girl's got to do. This is all a big
That's right.
hedge of protection because I don't want guys getting all handsy with me until I'm ready for them. And sometimes also a woman will indeed be looking for a steady long-term boyfriend and she'll start giving you ultimatums or whatever. And you go, well, I'm just not going to be that guy for you. So I think you need to be freed up to go find the guy you want. And that happens. And of course, just like you said, like clockwork's in. I mean, it's predictable, right? If you think you can't understand women, there's so much that's predictable once you start seeing these patterns. They're there. She'll call you up 72 hours later and go, can I just come over to your house and we have sex every day?
Exactly.
Well, wait a minute. Where's this coming from? Well, there's this need I have for a boyfriend, but if I'm not going to be able to find a boyfriend, I am a woman and I have needs and I really like you and you make me horny. So you've kind of been slotted differently. You're no longer this boyfriend material guy. I mean, you still are, but she's very horny and she just looks at it a certain way. And you're right. Often women can make that shift cognitively and just put you in that role and stay that way. But a lot of times they can't. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of times it starts slipping on you anyway into her getting the feels and et cetera, et cetera. And you got to make a responsible choice like a man when that happens. But you start doing the things that men do, what I call the big four. You're confident, you're masculine in a way that provides protection for a woman. She feels safe with you. You make her laugh. You bring out the fun, feminine, playful nature. And what you're going to find, Zan, again, this is the learned skill part of it, right? Almost no guys do this right? I mean, this guy's rare. That's why the alpha widows are created, because she has no other choice other than you, because so few guys get this, right?
Yeah, no question. I mean, it's interesting because I just had a thought just occurred to me, because I was this, wanderer, this flaneur. living in the wind and flitting from town to town for all those years that I was traveling. And I would meet a great girl and it was, we hit it off well, but I'm leaving town. I got to go. What's interesting to me is, and I've only heard one other man ever say this, and that was Hugh Hefner. He's the only one I ever heard say this. And when he said it, I go, wait a minute, that's me too. And he said this, he said, in all my years and all the women and all the relationships I've ever had, I have never once broken up with a girl. I've never dumped anybody in my life. And I never have either. Ever. I've never broken up. I've never said to somebody, listen, I think we should stop seeing each other. I never have. In my 20s and early 30s, women would leave me because I was needy and jealous and all this kind of crazy stuff that I was back then. So they had enough and they move on. And then later in life, they would end it because they found somebody else as I'm traveling through town. And I'm not the guy. I never broke up with a girl in my life. Neither did Hugh Hefner.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I've never said to a girl, I'm done. I can't see you anymore. Ever.
Well, yeah, I can't add myself to that short list because I've certainly put women in the just be friend zone or found out that they were a little crazy or the baggage just got a little too heavy or something appeared that was a deal breaker. And yeah, I've certainly broken up with women before. Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier. I want to bring up a point because this is a strong thing. And guys are maybe not aware of this either. We will stay, men and women do this too, but I'm talking from the men's perspective. They'll stay in a relationship because there's nothing else. There was a guy, I remember one time did Q&A in one of the talks I gave, and he said, Zan, I've got this girl I'm seeing for the last 4 years. She's sweet. She's wonderful. I really love her. We have a lot of fun together. She's a great girl. But she wants to get married and I don't really want to, I know I'm not going to marry this girl. I know I'm not. And I said, did you ever tell her that? He goes, no, because, it's such a good energy and, we have such a good time. She's desiring to get married and have children. And you're not letting her know that you're not ever going to be that guy.
That's a lack of connection.
Because when women have this, they call men their ex and they talk about him in negative terms because he misrepresented what the relationship was going to be about. And if you're doing that and you're not being honest and you're staying in a relationship just because you can't find another girl that's better at this point, and you're misrepresenting and she's hoping that you're going to marry her someday and or have children with her, and you're not, and in your heart you're not going to do it, that's manipulation. And that to me is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to do. Because I've met women who came out of a relationship after 4 or 5 years and they're sad. Their heart is broken. They say, I'm now 38. I thought he was going to marry me. And I thought he was going to have children. He kept, he just never would answer the question. And I want to know. And now I'm 38 years old. I got to start over again. And they have a really bad energy about that guy.
That's Mr. Nice Guy.
That's correct.
And this is a massive, massive point you're making because a lot of guys think of Mr. Nice Guy as this kind of nebulous concept. I'm being kind, I'm being nice. Maybe I'm being a little needy and I'm afraid of the woman. I'm afraid of losing her. This is a quintessential example of Mr. Nice Guy acting in fear. He doesn't want to hurt her feelings. He doesn't want to break her heart. But there she is telling a lie.
He doesn't want to, he's comfortable.
He doesn't want to lose her.
He doesn't want to lose her.
It's his own fear. So therefore, he's not taking care enough of the woman he said he's in love with, or he said he actually respects and likes, enough to tell her the truth, which is, I'm never going to be your husband.
That's
now,
right.
if you tell a woman that up front, she may come to Emily or to me a year later going, this bastard, he won't marry me. And the first question we always ask those women is, well, what did he tell you up front? Well, you should have listened to him. That's exactly what he said. He hasn't lied. I mean, some guys lie, but yeah, that's a Mr. Nice Guy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right about that. And a lot of guys, it's fear of loss. And I don't think the guy who fears loss is the same guy we're talking about here, because the guy we're talking about here clearly has options. You're flittering from town to town, like you said, meeting a new woman everywhere you go or new women everywhere you go. You're lying in bed naked with them, teaching them how to text other men, et cetera, et cetera. Seriously, that's breathtaking evidence you're not a needy guy.
Right.
I had one woman I was dating and I helped her rewrite her online dating profile under similar circumstances, right? I won't go into the details. So the term I have that I want to throw on the table right now is charm throttling. And any of the guys listening who are familiar with my work understand that that's something that, well, beautiful, sexy women will do on a first date when they're used to guys throwing themselves at them because they're so beautiful, so sexy, so perfect, so sweet, so feminine, so pure, and they're not this bitchy, horrible virago of a woman that most beautiful, sexy women, seem to be to them. These are the women who can't go on a second or third date without getting marriage proposals. Much to the chagrin of all those women out there who men don't trust, who go 2 or 3 years with the same boyfriend and he won't put a ring on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of times those women will kind of ratchet back the shock and awe of how amazing they are and kind of just smile and play nice on the first date and not laugh too hard at his jokes. But I think it's not necessarily a practice that's gender specific. I think when guys have a lot of options and they're going out on a first date with a woman they're not so sure about, and they know they have this ability, potentially at least, to create alpha widows out there, they should charm throttle a little bit also. But, you also have to wrestle with, is that disingenuous? Is that not honest? And I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence about this, Zan, but I want to hear your opinion on it. I mean, can you kind of hold back a little bit up front?
I remember this woman told me one time, this older woman, I was in this group session of some kind, and I was one of the participants. And this is back in the day. You said that, the word seduction has a bad connotation. Back then, my company was called Enlightened Seduction. That's, 15 years ago or more. Enlightened Seduction. And I was this dating coach talking about seduction, how wonderful it is and how a beautiful energy it really is. And we need to reclaim it. And in this group, we spent, the time with these men and women. And this older woman one time said, you know what? I think, you talk a good game. You talk about seduction and stuff like that, but you're fake because, none of us women here in this group feel any kind of seductive power from you at all. You're not being authentic. You're fake. We don't believe you. And I'm saying to myself, you're married women. I'm charm throttling. You're married women. I'm being respectful. And she said this to me. I'll never forget. She said, we're all married, but it's not your responsibility how we respond to you being truly you.
Well, that's true. It's very true. But can't you at least care about them enough not to make them all want you and potentially cheat on their husbands? Or is that just arrogance on our part?
Well, what she told me was that it's not your responsibility. If you're this man who loves life, who lives in the wind, who loves women like you say you do, and you're charming and stuff like that, and you're not trying to sneak into her bedroom or get her to cheat on her husband and break the hearts of her children. You're not that guy. But you are full force, you being sexual creature, and you don't dial it down. And all the women look at you and say, wow, I wish I had this guy in my life or in my bed or whatever. It's not your responsibility that these married women are turning and looking at you. And it's not your responsibility that other men are upset at you. You have to be true to you. This old woman told me that. I'll never forget it. Because then you're authentic.
Yeah, let's put the show on the other foot. Should a beautiful, sexy woman who turns heads dumb herself down, so to speak, and go around wearing hair curlers and try to look
exactly.
all,
and it's you're not, like I said, you're not trying to break relationships. You're not trying to, you adore women. You let them know, wow, you're a true beauty. I see you and I see your friend here and I see this woman. Wow, wonderful, wonderful. And you're that guy. You don't dial it down. You don't say, okay, well, I hope she doesn't get the wrong impression. You are full force of that guy, and they're married women, relationships, whatever, and you fully respect it. You're not trying to break that or trying to, hey, girl, let's sneak around the corner here, because you're honoring that. Right. But you're still the guy who loves women, and you shower them with affection and shower them with, and they're your friends, and you compliment them on the way they look and their bodies. That's who you are.
Well, you just essentially described the secret of how I still take guys out in field and transform their ability to talk to and attract women, even though I'm happily married, and sometimes taking my wife along out in field with us. I don't know about complimenting them on their bodies and telling them how beautiful they are with physical compliments. I, respect my wife too much to do that. But seriously, Zan, the pure gold here is that when you like women and have women like you back, you've done the heavy lifting. When It's not an adversarial relationship between ourselves and the women we encounter anymore, women will follow that lead of us enjoying and liking them and bringing out their femininity. And they'll respond to us with very female, aka sexual energy. Correct. And then, we've talked about a lot. I mean, it's a flogged horse on the show, how men see flirtation and the whole idea indeed of expressing sexual interest to a woman as an on-off switch. Either I'm ignoring her completely or I'm propositioning her. Whereas women see flirting and seduction as this dial. Hence, they get warmed up rather than they're just on and off. But yeah, just enjoying women in your life is a good thing, and it's their responsibility completely how they respond to it.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to shift gears here because I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about how women can do this to us. They can alpha widow us, right? Alpha widowers, right?
Yeah.
I think men often have, quote unquote, the one who got away. And I think that kind of follows the same script we've been going over this entire show. But I think in particular, women can alpha widower us in specific ways. And let me rattle off a few examples, lightning round style here. If a woman has a certain laugh, right? Or she has this incredibly mellifluous voice. And these guys know I could listen to my wife, Emily, laugh and giggle her way through the phone book. The phone book were only funny, right? If a woman is an amazing cook and, she gets us to fall in love with her through our stomach, right? The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. I mean, I don't know how true that is, but I mean, I've had girlfriends who could cook and they were amazing. And Emily's one of them, how she treats us. What if she's like one of those few women who actually really likes men and et cetera, et cetera. And all those are fantastic. But I think a lot of times, Zan, men get addicted to women. And that's what we're talking about here, right? Mm-hmm. Sexually. For example, she's the best kisser ever. I mean, I went on a date one time and this woman kissed my brains out so passionately and fully that I was literally seeing stars like I'd been punched in the face. There's that one woman who just read all the books, watched all the YouTube videos, and knows how to give a blowjob like you would not believe, right? And we've talked about this on the show before, but I believe our genitalia, men and women, can fall in love with each other despite the rest of ourselves. Mm. I mean, a lot of us can kind of point to a certain woman whose pussy just really loved our unit, man. And they just really hit it off great. And maybe the rest of us couldn't stand each other, but basically our genitals have alpha widowed each other. I mean, I don't know. A lot of guys are going to kind of raise their eyebrows and go, dude, what the hell are you talking about? But it's a very real thing.
It's real. Yeah.
It's unreasonable to expect all of that in one package, but the woman who ultimately becomes the right woman for us long term, in my estimation, can be sort of a culmination of all the favorite things about our favorite girlfriends, right? I mean, obviously there probably was also the best voracious little slut of all time out there, right? Who probably will never be the kind of woman who's, marriage material to us. That may not translate. But what about all the rest of what I talked about? What say you on that?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I think that women, for certain, there's every kind of stripe of women, just like there's every stripe of man. And some women are just pure manipulation and they get off on it. And they like the nice guys because the nice guys are buying them stuff and picking them up from the airport and holding their shopping bags. And they just keep them, on the leash for a year or two. And they like it, and they know they're doing that, and they know they're getting free goods out of the guy and free meals and stuff like that. And so, some women are not aware of that. They're not aware that the guy is secretly in love with her, and they're nice girls. So, but there's a whole spectrum of that. Just like there's manipulative men out there who are trying to take and trying to manipulate. There's women too that are the same thing. So now, is there sincere women who get into a relationship with a guy and leave him an alpha widower? Sure. Yeah. Relationships sometimes, they end, and maybe he's completely, like you said, head over heels over her and she's not 100% and it's time to move on. And here's the difference between men and women. Like I said earlier, women can come to terms with that. They talk to their girlfriend, their mother, the girlfriend, their mother, the girlfriend, their mother, their friends. They talk it over until they come to some kind of understanding, and they close a door and move on to the new thing. But the guy will just keep thinking about that one that got away forever.
Yeah, pining over the one who got away.
Pining over the one, yep.
Yeah. One thing that came to mind while you're talking is women, I think, also can become sexually addicted to a man. It isn't necessarily, he was so charming and he was this incredible guy who treated me well, et cetera, et cetera. Women can become these little doe-eyed, sexually addicted creatures who just want to have sex all the time with you. Another thing that I thought about is when you create this alpha widow, you start seeing that submissive nature of women come out, don't you? Even if she was real kind of gritty and a leader at work, once they fall completely for you, they're putty in your hands. Women are typically, maybe not across the board, but I've seen pretty breathtaking examples of that, especially when you're taking care of them and you actually like women and you're doing all the things we've been talking about this entire show. And you combine that with really taking care of them in the bedroom and giving them the orgasms like no guy's ever given them before. They become these little submissive, doe-eyed creatures, like I mentioned.
Of course.
Yeah,
and that's the natural state in general. Generalizing, of course. And some women will say, well, that's not me, and you can't say that's the way I am. And some men will say, well, my wife's not like that. But in general, you're right. Generalizing, yes, I would say that is correct. That's the natural state of a woman in relationship with a man who's got conviction and kindness and respect and likes his girl.
You provide and protect and make her feel safe and
that's right. They reflect it.
She takes care of you in return and likes it.
That's right.
Yeah. Boom. Been a great conversation. I think we hit this with a big heavy hammer, Zamparian. I think these guys are crystal clear now. The name of your book on Amazon is The Alabaster Girl. The Alabaster Girl. Yeah, I'll put that at the top of the Amazon influencer queue again for you, Zan, and for you guys listening at mountaintoppodcast.com/Amazon. Didn't you say you have a new book coming out? I'm working on it right now, and hopefully that'll be out this year. Okay, so look for a new book from Zamparian later this year, too. I bet that's greatly anticipated by your tribe, man. Yes, it is. And actually, you don't have to even go to Amazon, because when you go to mountaintoppodcast.com/Zan, 3 little letters with lots of big ideas behind them, right? mountaintoppodcast.com/Zan. What are they going to find there, Zan? You got a surprise for them, right? Yeah, I have printed a couple thousand books in Romania of the Alabaster Girl, and I have them sitting here. And I'll send one to you free if you go to that link you just said. I'll send one to you, the book, as a gift to you free. You just have to pay for the shipping and handling, and I'll sign the book physically and send it to you in the mail. So there you go. Yeah, those things must be taking up space. Yeah, they are. I've got a couple thousand books. I printed 5,000 before, and I printed 2,000 before, and now I'm on 2,000 again. So I've been doing this for a long time, sending out free copies to people all over the world. I've sent out thousands of books by hand, signing them. Yeah, guys, take advantage of that. That's yours for the taking right there. So yes, again, go to mountaintoppodcast.com/Zan. As always, Zamparian, always a pleasure. I love the conversations you and I have, because indeed we both love women, and I really hope and trust that guys have been inspired by this conversation instead of just being made angry by it. Guys, all of this is learned skill. It all starts with loving women. If you're feeling like women have broken you, if they've hurt you, take responsibility. Stop with the victimhood stuff. Start by loving women. You don't have to put up with their crap. You can cut them off as soon as they turn into crazy women. You've heard that from me before. But just watch how that leadership works. Give it a shot. That's all Zane and I are asking of you. And hopefully that does indeed inspire you. Go to mountaintoppodcast.com. Download my free book, Sticking Points Solved. You'll find answers to just about every typical quandary guys have when they're struggling with women in general. It's a good place to start. Also, guys, get on the phone and talk to me. Talk to me about where you are right now, where you want to be in your journey getting better with women. It's free of charge. There's no pressure. If we want to put a coaching program together, that's all well and good for both of us. However, when you go to mountaintoppodcast.com, click the red button in the upper right-hand corner and get on my schedule. You and I will talk for 25 or 30 minutes about you, not about other guys, not about generic stuff that's everyday dating advice. We'll talk about you and your situation in particular. While you're there at mountaintoppodcast.com, please visit Jocko Willink's company, Origin in Maine, the Keyport Guys, and Heroes Soap. And when you partake of any of our sponsors' fine products, be sure to use the coupon code MOUNTAIN10 to get 10% off. It's all there for you and more at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.